I'm John Niehaus, Director of Program Development for the National Association of Flight Instructors. I'd like to welcome you to this edition to the NAFI 10 Question Challenge, the online video series where we take successful instructors, ask them 10 questions, and see how they carved out a path for themselves and achieved personal and professional success. Today, my guest is Eric Goodman. Eric is a CFI, II, MEI, ATP. He's also an A&P mechanic. He has 12 type ratings. He's been an instructor since 1989, which is about 31 years of flight instruction experience. He's former Air Force ROTC. He started out instructing with Spartan School of Aeronautics. He then moved on to Flight Safety International, where he was part of their Beechcraft program, flying all number of different Beechcraft airframes. He then moved on to Texatron, where he's part of their Pro Ownership program, where they specialize in supporting new aircraft owners and mentoring the pilots for the new aircraft owners. Eric, welcome.
Thank you, John. Good to be here.
Well, in typical format, we'll just go straight into the first question. Was flight instruction part of your original career plan, or was it something you never anticipated doing?
No, it was something I never anticipated doing. My initial goal was to fly for the military. That didn't happen. Then I pretty much gave up on flying and for 6 or 7 years, and then realized there was another route to get into flying, and that was through flight instructing. So I left my job in industry and then gave up a decent paying job to get my flight ratings while supporting my family, and ended up flight instructing for a living for a few years, enjoying that, and then moving on. But no, it was not my initial plan.
So reflecting on your instructor skill with your first student, how well do you think you did?
You know, I think I did okay, but maybe it's a little bit of the older we get, the better we were, you know, kind of. But I think I was pretty well prepared because my instructor at Spartan, a guy named Mark Moeller, was just an exceptional instructor. And I think he kind of set the bar for me. So when I started teaching, you know, he was my role model. So I was probably over-prepared, if anything, maybe bombarded my first student with too much stuff in an effort to, you know, to give him his money's worth. But you know, I wasn't just winging it. I know that. I mean, it was a structured school. It was a planned lesson. And I learned as I went, you know, as we all did. But, you know, it was kind of like the first time, you know, you're teaching a steep turn, and you say, yeah, and you roll in, and then once you rolled in, you'll counter. Wow, I really do counter that. I never thought about that till I explained it to a student, you know. So I think I did all right. I mean, I'm sure the guy wasn't in awe, but you know, he came back for a second lesson. So yeah.
So sort of bonus question here. I mean, when you transitioned from Spartan into flight safety, was that a difficult move from an instructor style standpoint?
It wasn't a difficult move because I think Nick Frisch, who was our program manager, had such a good program, and the instructors were so strong in the program when I came in that they really mentored me into the program. They didn't just throw you under the gun. I mean, it was a couple months of training, indoctrination, education, really learning the product. I mean, Nick was really big on having people with technical backgrounds as well. So my A&P was a help, and I did turn wrenches on airplanes for a few years, so I had some real experience. But he did such a good job of mentoring us that I felt, you know, pretty ready by the time I started teaching that product. I felt I knew the Bonanza fairly well, the first airplane I taught there, and the equipment, the support you had there was really very good as well. So no, I felt pretty prepared and just felt better and better as it went along because we were always improving the program, continuing our education. It was a really, really, really great experience.
So most of us have had a instructor mentor who sort of taught us the ropes. Who was yours, and what was the most meaningful thing they taught you?
Mark Moeller was the first one. He was my initial instructor at Spartan. I found him because he was teaching ground school there. I was still working as an A&P. And because I got my A&P through Spartan, I got a free ground school. So I got lucky and got Mark, and then asked him, would you be my instructor? and he's just a phenomenal instructor, still a friend of mine today. We've flown together ever since 1988, 87. I think he taught me, and it's always been one of my pet peeves, is professionalism. Professionalism encompasses a lot of things, from proper appearance, showing up on time if you're not 10 minutes early or late, being prepared, knowing the subject, knowing how to present the subject, but also knowing how to pace it, not drown the person in subject matter, knowing how to break it down for them, knowing how to spot when they're having a problem, and being able to articulate that to them, and always having something positive to say during or at the end of a lesson, even if it wasn't, even if everything didn't go right, always give you some positives too. And then Nick Frisch was the other one at flight safety, and he continued that in the same old professionalism. I mean, you couldn't be more professional than Nick. And again, the knowledge, the support he gave you, the boost he always gave you. Those two guys were, your flight instructor, to me, it's like the foundation of your flying career. And if you have a good foundation, the house has a good chance to turn out okay. And I think they both, built that foundation for me. And, I was fortunate I didn't have someone who was, just kind of happy-go-lucky or wing it, and hey, let's go out and roll the airplane or something. These guys were pros. I mean, they were good. And
yeah, I mean, it's all about sort of preparation and support. It does make a difference.
It is. You don't just show up at the same time as a student and read the book. To me, there's at least a half-hour preparation on my part before every lesson, that I've done the night before or whatever, so I know what I need to do and what we're trying to accomplish, and so I can, communicate that to them clearly, and so we can get out and say, yeah, we actually did this today, and we got better at this, and this stayed about the same, and well, that's a little learning plateau, and it was. I was really fortunate that way. Two super mentors, and I've had other guys I've worked with, like you mentioned, Tom Turner, that were just wonderful role models, gifted instructors. But these two guys were, working directly with me every day, and
mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny how that preparation actually translates into so many other aspects. I mean, if you're not putting that preparation into a flight where, for your case, you're flying jets across the country and stuff, that requires that same kind of preparation, just in a different way.
Exactly. That's that foundation, and you carry that. You show up, knowing you have to prepare, whether it's flight instructing, whether it's flying a jet across the country, no matter what it's doing that way. And the other big thing, that I think Mark instilled in me right away is that it's, enthusiasm too, and honest enthusiasm, not phony stuff, but honest enthusiasm, loving your job. Even though flight instructing is a stepping stone for a lot of people, some people do it for life. It's a stepping stone for a lot, but to immerse yourself in it and enjoy it, and it's you're setting the foundation for all these other people to make them professionals like you are. And to me, that was a huge thing that he brought to it too, was his earnest enthusiasm. I mean, you swore, both he and Nick, you swore they would not rather be anywhere else than with you, working with you right now, and they made you feel like you're the only one in the room, when they're working with you. So that was I think the honest enthusiasm too, and keeping that, even if you are looking at it as a stepping stone to another place in your career, be enthusiastic, because it rubs off on the students. It shows in your professionalism,
What is the most valuable non-aviation skill you've learned as a flight instructor?
Yeah, I was trying to think, flexibility. I mean, as a corporate pilot, demo pilot, it's such a dynamic industry, and things are constantly changing. And hey, tomorrow you're going A to B to C to D, and you get there and, oh, wait, the plan just changed. You're not leaving for 2 more hours, and now you're going just to C instead. But you got to pick up this passenger, and you got to do a pilot demo here, and now you're not going to get home for 6 more days. And when I was flight instructing, there were days where the first student showed up at 6 a.m. and the last student showed up at 6 p.m. and everyone else canceled throughout the day. So, and when you're making $10 a lesson at the time, it's not like you could go hang out at the restaurant, So, I mean, it taught me so much, but I mean, flexibility was, I learned right away that aviation is a very dynamic industry. It's not cut and dried. It's not 8 to 5. It's not, it's, hey, you're going to work nights, you're going to work days. Go with the flow. I mean, go with the flow, I guess, is even more at it, more what I think I learned is go with the flow and don't let things ruffle you. You end up in China and the Chinese salesman says, oh, instead of this, we're doing this. Well, that's fine for the salesman to say that, but the Chinese government, the Chinese FAA doesn't look at it that way. Now, all of a sudden you're penalized and you have to explain to him that, hey, if we do this, we're not going to get to, it carried on because I've flown a lot throughout the world. And, when you fly in places like India and China and Africa, it doesn't go your way and it doesn't make a difference what you say. And you just have to learn to go with the flow. I was getting a clearance in Blantyre, Malawi one time. And the guy says, sorry, cannot give you clearance. You have not paid your fees. Well, the universal agent that was supposed to be there to handle all this didn't show up. So now I'm winging it, and I end up walking up the spiral staircase to the control tower. And how much is it? $82 US. I said, can I get a receipt? Yes, sir. Whip out the $82 US, go back down. November so-and-so request clearance to November so-and-so. Here's your clearance, So, go with the flow. I mean, I remember there's so many instances where I've been, somewhere stuck, sitting on a ramp in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. They're wanting more tax. I was flying over Djibouti one time, I think, and the controller comes on and says, November so-and-so, and this is my first contact with him, say name of company and mailing address. I go, what the heck? And he's wanting to know where to send the bill. So, and that was before he ever gave me any instruction, any altitudes, anything, there's no radar contact, but so go with the flow, don't let it rattle you, go with the flow. I see people in their career who are very good at it, and I see people who are not, and getting agitated and mad will never win a day with customs or, or anything, go with the flow, The customs guy wants you to do it that way. And I did learn that as a flight instructor, because I learned right away things aren't going to go as planned.
Well, what do you enjoy most about flight instruction?
It's really, I think it is like, I got to believe it is like most types of teaching, is seeing the light come on for someone. And maybe it's not always someone who had a lot of trouble, but everyone hits stages, and they'll have a little problem, have a little issue, and you figure out another way to disseminate the information to get through to them. You go home at night and think, this just isn't working. I got to figure out another way, to get to work with my student, to get them to see the light. And when you figure that out, and it works, whether it was at Flight Safety, whether it was at Spartan, that was the biggest reward to me, was to see someone go and really see that it did work, and then see them progress and see them, they get more excited, they get more enthused, and they get their, what's the word? Confidence. Mm-hmm. I mean, because everyone who flies knows confidence is huge in aviation. And if you ever lose it, it's not always easy to get it back. But yeah, seeing the light come on and getting through to someone. And I've had my troubled cases like all flight instructors had, and I haven't always succeeded. And I think that's my biggest regret, is when I didn't succeed, and couldn't get through to someone. But yeah.
Well, what is, looking back, what is your most interesting, scary, or fun story you've had as an instructor?
Well, I got a few, but maybe I just think I'm more interesting than I am. One of them was, I had this student, he's a Greek guy, wonderful guy. I had him throughout private, and then he picked me up for commercial again. And it was during his private that we were trying to get a flight in at Spartan. And the first plane, we went out and did a mag check, blah, blah, blah. It was bad, so we brought it back, and they gave us another airplane. We took it out there, blah, blah, blah. It was bad. Okay, we have no other airplanes available today. I said, okay, George, we're going to have to, let's just, try again tomorrow. And he goes, okay. But he was a very enthusiastic student, a very good guy, good pilot. And I had another couple of lessons, and then I'm about to leave at the end of the day, and George comes running out to my car. Eric, we have an airplane. We have an airplane. I said, it's like 6 p.m. I said, you sure, George? He goes, yeah. I said, George, there's some days where you're just not meant to fly. And he goes, no, we got an airplane. So we jump in this airplane, go out there, it passes the checks, we take off. We're just leveling at 3,000 feet, and it just starts shaking and banging and felt like, I thought it threw a prop blade at first is what I thought. So I said, I've got it, George. So I took the airplane, and you could tell it was coming apart. So I just killed the engine and put it down in a field.
Oh.
And there was no incidents. I mean, it was easy. I was lucky. It was clear VFR in a million. I was in Oklahoma. It's all fields out there. Just don't hit a fence is the main thing. So I put it down in a field, but when we had to at first, what was so funny to me is I said, I've got it, George. And he looks over at me and he goes with a big smile. And he says, we're really going to have to do it, aren't we? Let's make a good one. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you so happy about? I just lost all the engine, man. So we put it down the field, and I called Spartan. They said, we'll send a mechanic out. I said, well, you can send whatever you want out, but I just tailed it down to put it more into the wind. And I said, one of the wrist pins fell out of the cowling. So I don't think it's going to fly today. And it split the crankcase about, I don't know, 1.5 feet, and one cylinder was just hanging off by the spark plug wires on the side there. And I've still got the piston that broke in half that the wrist pin fell out of. So that was.
Gosh. So in your mind, what quality or skill makes for an exceptional flight instructor?
Man, I mean, it's that professionalism, it's enthusiasm, it's intelligence, it's the ability to convey the lesson, to stay positive. To me, it's not just one thing. It's really wanting to do the job. It's doing it like Mark Moeller and Nick Frisch did, Tom Turner does, where you love the job, you love connecting with people, you love working with them, you love aviation. But it's that professionalism, It's package.
What aspect of your time as a flight instructor best prepared you for what you do now then?
Maybe one of them is that, that I was amazed how much I learned from my students. And I know that's almost cliche, but I never thought of it. When I think every student I had, I always learned things from them. And that carries over to every pilot you fly with, you learn things from. Maybe you learn, I don't want to do it that way, but a lot of times it's, wow, even if they do things you don't like the way they do, there's always some things that they do that are, better or in addition to the way that you do them. So I think to observe and to listen, more than you talk sometimes, and to watch and to pick up good techniques, because I did from my students, I did from, so many pilots I've flown with over the years have just, I think, wow, why did I never think of that? Why didn't I do it that way? It's so much better. So I think to watch, observe, and learn, and never stop learning, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and let me know what your thoughts are on this. I mean, I've found that when you transition into a crew environment, flight instructors tend to make better captains too. I mean, you're not there to instruct the first officer, but there's a certain amount of knowledge that's passing between those two seats. And if you can do it in a way where you're, not blatantly giving them flight instruction per se, but you're saying, hey, you're doing good, but, maybe this might help make things a little bit better for you. When I've had especially new first officers that have struggled with certain things, being there to sort of support them and help them. That's one of the things for me as a flight instructor. I've really been able to kind of fall into that role without being too heavy-handed on it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. It is. It's just because you don't want to talk down to anybody. They're experienced pilot, just like you're an experienced pilot. You want to work well as a crew, and it's just totally destructive if you start talking down and be the old autocratic captain that's, this is my side, this is your side. Yeah, to know how to talk to people, properly, I guess. So you're not insulting them. So they're intelligent, they're skilled just like you are. So you work well together, and it's the reason that, the reason the flight safety sent me to China was China said they must be CFIs. They had to be, not all instructors of flight safety are CFIs. Mm-hmm. But the only ones that, like the country of China, would let come over had to be certified flight instructors. I did the same thing in Spain on the first beach jet that went to Spain. I went to Pamplona for over a month. They were training the initial crew, and I had to be, on their check rides, I had to be the PIC on the SIC's check ride, and I had to be the SIC on the PIC's check ride. And that's all done in the airplane with an old Iberian, A340 captain who's smoking cigarettes, chain smoking in between the seats of the beach jet. But again, it had to be a CFI that went over there. They required that because they knew, that there was, you had some teaching skills, or hopefully you did, and yeah, in a crew environment like that, that's huge, because you'll get these captains who are, I say, man, you need to do 50 hours in the right seat to understand what the right seater does, instead of just being this, captain, whatever. But yeah, very, very valid point. Yeah.
How did you utilize your time as a CFI to transition into your professional role now?
Well, when I was at flight safety, I think I love the instructing in the piston program, the Bonanza Baron, Duke, P Baron, that stuff. I switched to the beach jet program just because I had that, aspiration. Okay, I want to fly something different. I want to fly something bigger, faster, whatever, like a lot of people do in aviation. And once I got training in the beach jet, I thought, I love my job at flight safety, but to be honest, the teaching wasn't as fun in the program as it was in the piston program, because in the piston program, you had clients coming in, it was their airplane, they were paying the money for very professional training that they couldn't get anywhere, for the Baron, for the Bonanza. And so they couldn't get this anywhere else. So they were coming in very enthused, paying a lot of money, a lot of doctors, that kind of stuff, whose time, people who's used to their time being very valuable, and they're listening to us. Mm-hmm. And that was very rewarding, very enjoyable. Once in a while, I got one story about where it wasn't, but anyway, when I went to the beach jet, it was professional crews, and it was interesting. It was fun. I got to fly the beach jet some, but a lot of the professional crews, hey, I'm here 3 days. Give me a 6158. Get me out of here. It wasn't as fun, as rewarding as the piston teaching was. So I thought, well, I'll go to fly. So I guess I took my flight instructing experience there, made connections with people at Beechcraft because they were there all the time, and started talking to the people who ran the demonstration program at Beechcraft and said, hey, I'm interested in getting into flying demonstration for you if you're interested in me. And it took about a year to where I, opened enough doors and got enough attention. And then in 98, I left flight safety and started in the Hawker Beechcraft demonstration team, or flying for them, I flew King Airs, flew Beach Jets, flew Premiers, flew Hawkers over the years with them then, but it all, the flight instruction ended up allowing me to to acquire the skills, the type ratings, the experience, and make the connections with the people on the Hawker Beechcraft side to move into their demonstration program. And that's really the majority of my flying career. That's what I did then, is fly around the world, flying demonstration.
Well, you kind of touched on something. I mean, everybody talks about how small the aviation industry is, and the whole quote burning bridges and all of that stuff. But the side of that coin that doesn't come up as often that you hinted on is networking. I mean, that is a art that you really have to learn, and a lot of people don't put as much emphasis on because they don't think they necessarily need it. They figure, oh, I'm just going to apply to this job and get this thing, and it's a reoccurring theme that is way more important than people seem to give it credit for.
Yeah, it's who you know in aviation. It's who you know in aviation. You kind of assume everyone can fly. It's, can all my guys get along with this person? Or can I, it's personality is a lot of it. So if you have someone recommending someone who, hey, I've flown them for 3 years, wonderful person, real pro, you're going to see if they can fly before you ever hire them. But it's who you know more than anything. Yeah, it's that's so important. Don't ever burn that bridge, because it's probably the one you're going to cross. I mean, a number of times in my career, I've come back to a person who worked under me is now over me, or they're involved with my hiring again, and they have a yay or nay say in that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't ever burn a bridge, because it's probably the one you're going to want to cross again. If you
right.
Yeah.
Final question. If you could give a new instructor one piece of advice for success in the profession, what would it be?
It's probably going to, teaching is probably going to be a small part of your career, but it is that foundation that you're building. And without a strong foundation, teaching, I mean, it basically establishes how you're going to work through the rest of your career. Are you going to be the consummate professional? Or are you going to be the guy that shows up at the last minute and breaks out the book with the guy and says, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. It sets the pace for the rest of your life. And it sets the pace, it sets foundation for every student you work with. I mean, you realize how important your job is. I mean, it really is. All these people who are out flying, whether they're flight instructing, still flying corporate airplanes, flying airlines, whatever, they all started with a flight instructor working with them who set that foundation. And when I look at some of the people who I think are a little flaky, I wonder, what kind of foundation? They weren't fortunate like me and didn't have Mark Moeller and Nick Frisch, to get me going. So, take it seriously, very seriously, enjoy it. You are going to progress. You are going to make more money. But instructing is a lot of fun. It's one of the more fun jobs I've ever had, I think. And you look back and you really enjoy it. And so enjoy it while you do it. Be a pro. Do it to the best of your ability all the way, like you do any job, and build that good foundation for you and your students.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that our chairman of our board, Bob Mader, says, he goes, just to show you how important flight instructors are, there's only two people in the history of aviation that have never had flight instructors, and that's Wilbur and Orville. Everybody else has. Everybody you've ever looked up to, Bob Hoover, and all of the astronauts and all of those all-stars in aviation, at one point or another, they've all had or been flight instructors.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Well, Eric, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for being here and for all of the information you contributed. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, John. Enjoy it.